have a amazing experience. I pause because amazing is a small word to describe this phenomenal clinician who is a super dope therapist, right? And notice I didn't just say black therapist, a super dope therapist who's an international trainer, teacher, healer, spiritual woman, right? And who is also someone who's going to introduce us to Brainspotting. There's so many words that can describe this woman and the commitment she's made to the BIPOC community, but also the healing community. So I am so proud that she's going to be here, Miss Tracy Monroy. And what I'm going to do in the chat, I'm going to also put her information so that for those of you who are clinicians or who are just interested in learning more about brain spotting, it will be in the chat. I'm trying to put it there right now so that you can have her information because everyone needs to know a Tracy Monroy. And once you're in her presence, you'll always be different. And Tracy's one of the people, which is the reasons why I started this channel, these conversations, because growing up, I didn't know any therapists who looked like me, right? The closest I got was seeing Oprah, who wasn't a therapist. I didn't know where to go for help, which is why I started the color of traumaandhealing.com, because I wanted to have create a place where you can find people who are brown people, yellow people, tan people who look like us. And sometimes the only lens that some of us have, or the only optic we have, is by watching Yolanda Van Zandt. And she's an amazing coach, and she's a spiritual leader, but she's not a clinician. And clinicians move a certain kind of way, and we feel a certain kind of way. We look at the micro and the macro at the same time and do the magic of healing. So I want to introduce the world to this sister who is amazing. And I want to say to you who are in counseling that I wanted you to challenge your clinicians to really consider, do they know brain spotting? Because if you're in pain and it's generational, it's situational, it's historical, it's due to natural disasters, and this is not a modality that's in their toolkit, woo, then they got a problem because you're not getting what you need, right? Should be familiar with it. They can't specialize it. They should be familiar with it because this sister does trainings, right? And she's available. You could even want to be in Africa in a couple of weeks. So this woman spreads herself around so that everyone can have an opportunity to learn from her, right? To connect with her and to be healed by her. So without further ado, I'm a little dramatic. Miss Tracy Monroy, how are you?
Candice, I just love you. Thanks for inviting me, first and foremost. I mean, when you were speaking about me, I'm here, but it was like I was having like some dissociation or out of body experience because I don't nearly see myself the way that you and perhaps others may. But it's just such a pleasure to be here with you on your platform. Every time I encounter you, we kiki, we
Mm-hmm.
giggle,
Yeah.
and we expand because you're a
Mm-hmm.
brilliant sister.
Thank you. Takes one to
My
know one.
pleasure.
Takes one to know one, right? And when I say beyond just a dope black therapist, I really hold you in high esteem. And I kid you not, in our community, Tracy's a real thing, right? And it's
Hmm.
beautiful that she doesn't know herself, but we know who she is, and we constantly remind her that she's a real thing.
Hmm.
Even my husband, who's not a clinician, who knows her voice, like, oh, I heard Tracy in the training rooms because we're in similar kind of training space. Like, how you know Tracy of all the people? That's off my friend. So I'm gonna, I even wrote a little couple questions because I was like, I'm gonna make this thing do what it do, baby. So I'm gonna start off. What is brain spotting? What is brain spotting?
So we have this, I don't know if it's a mantra, if it's a saying, I don't know what you call it, but we have this thing that we say, which is where you look affects how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so people often say, what is that? And I respond and I say, well, if you were to take your eyes and not your head, and just
Mm-hmm.
take your eyes and shift them over to your left. Bring up something that's not too triggering for you. And I want to support you in being able to go with your eyes to your left, to the middle, and to the right. Like, I have a slight irritation. and I'll just use this as an example because I loved when you did that little I don't know if it was an ad or what it was about we're gonna need 2 pointers, 3 pointers for our brother,
Mhm.
yay. And I thought to myself, Candace is so hilarious. But nonetheless, with brain spotting, when we talk about where you look affects how you feel, what we're talking about is that you can bring up one situation. And when you bring up
Mhm.
that situation, I want you to just notice, excuse
Mhm.
me, your body experiencing that situation. Then I want you to hold that situation and change your eye positioning and take your eyes to the left. Notice what's happening when you take your eyes to the left around that situation you're holding. Then I'm going to invite you to bring your eyes forward. Just thinking around that same situation as you're looking forward, just scan your body slightly and just notice what that's like in your system as you're looking forward. Now, with that same situation, take your eyes to the right, not
Mhm.
your head, your eyes, as you're thinking about that same situation. And what many find is depending on where they're looking impacts what and how they're feeling.
Mm.
So, brain spotting has everything to do with harnessing your gaze around whatever situation it is. Now, when I say harnessing your gaze, in brain spotting, we don't use protocols. We use setups, right? And the
Mhm.
setups are simply two things. They're for certification,
Mhm.
right? Because for
Yeah.
anyone going through certification, just to know if you have competency enough to be certified, meeting the requirements. Also, it gives you an understanding so that you can begin to wrap your mind around learning something that's different, something that's new, because we already have anxiety around learning, especially when we're learning something new. So in brain spotting, we don't get caught up with the setups as much as the setups become somewhat structure
Yeah.
to impart, right, the power tool of brain spotting. And so with brain spotting is relational and it's neurobiological. What I mean by that is brain spotting is what we call working bottom up.
Mm.
So when I talk, that's right, that it's physiological, right?
Mhm.
With brain spotting, we enter the system through the subcortical brain or the midbrain, right? Bottom up. Bottom, talking about that brain stem, which is connected to the spine, up. Versus traditional therapy works from top down. Top being neocortical brain, prefrontal lobe. Traditional therapy, talk therapy, enters the system through this top brain here. Now, let me tell you the gag. When we enter the brain top down, there's only
Mhm.
one hard wiring access. When we go top down to even get into that alert system, where you're going to find your amygdala, hypothalamus, and the PAG. Now, when we're working bottom up, brainstem up into that subcortical midbrain,
Mhm.
we have from 1 to 4 quadrillion opportunities there.
Mm.
We have more connections in the brain than we do the stars in the universe, according to Daniel Amen.
Mm.
So, brain spotting is all about seeking out those trauma capsules in your system. And in your system, to mean we all have a trauma network,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And so I often say to clients, if you could imagine, y'all remember back in the day, or do you remember, Candace, when we would get a cell phone and they would give us the location map and it would
Yeah.
have the red dots of where you have
Uh-huh.
location?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So trauma network resembles that to me because when different things happen to us, it lodges in the body, right? Trauma is not in the event,
Yeah.
it's in the system, it's in the
Yeah.
body, it's in that experiencing of it, right? So when I share brain spotting to novice and people who are just curious, I say to them, if you can imagine that cell phone location map of where you got service, brain spotting, what it does is those little spots you see on the map where you have service, brain spotting by its design, which is a lot to do with
Yeah.
neurobiology, right? And relational, right? It's like neurobiology squared because the connection with
Mhm.
you and your own body, the connection between the therapist and the client. And so, brain spotting power tool, we use a pointer, and what it does as we're holding your gaze, right, using your field
Mhm.
of vision,
Yeah.
using a pointer or not, because there are techniques without a pointer, what we're doing is as we're scanning across your field of vision, we're noticing the reflexes in your face and your body. And what
Mhm.
we have found is that there's something there. We don't have to know what it is to know that it is. And so as we hold your gaze, which is like holding open that file,
Mhm.
brain, brain spotting goes quick and it goes deep to those trauma
Mhm.
capsules in the brain and in the body. And we allow that to process. Brain spotting cracks open
Yeah. So that's
those
why
vessels.
it goes deeper than traditional talk therapy. Because when you talk to someone and I'm activated, if I'm agitating, you're talking to me, I'm checked out. This is done. Right. So when I see people who are TV therapists or TV people doing life coaching with interventions, and I'm watching someone activated, I'm like, whoa, they don't realize this person's not present, that they're in their trauma or in their pain. Because when I think about network, I think about that Verizon network that has all these things and it's all networked, right? And when you're talking to someone, and if you're not connected to them, you can't get into their network because their body's holding them hostage, which is why I love what you're saying about brain spotting, because it goes from that brainstem part and goes up, right? And it goes to a place where talking can't go. Because there are people who are in therapy forever and they're like, I'm not getting better, or I'm getting better, but I'm not getting better. I'm still, getting upset and cursing people out, and I'm still late for job and sabotaging myself, and I'm still doing the old habits. And I think that's where that brain spotting comes in, right? It disrupts that network, or it looks at that network and looks what's in that network that's keeping you in that habit.
But here's the gag, Candace, when you say that. I won't say that talk therapy can't go, right? Because we do have that one hard wiring
Mm-hmm.
from the neocortical brain down to that alert center with that
Mm-hmm.
amygdala that's always scanning around,
Mm-hmm.
looking for threats, and then that hypothalamus actually decides, is it a threat or is Amy tripping? We call amygdala
Mm-hmm.
Amy, before it
Right,
engages the PAG
right,
and then the
right.
system activates, right? So I do want to point that out because there is benefit to psychotherapy in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a gambling woman, I'd much rather from 1 to 4 quadrillion opportunities at those connections than just lending myself to the one through the
Mm-hmm.
neocortical brain. Because the fact is, if all a clinician does is sit and look at you and hold you, you have received more from that moment had not someone
Mm-hmm.
attuned and resonated with you, right?
Yes.
Because brain spotting works from the premise of dual attunement and uncertainty principle, right? And so with brain spotting, what amazes me is how the power tool and its own design, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I find that God was gracious and gifted Dr. David Grand, who was the founder and developer of Brain Spotting, in his love, gentleness, and kindness that he shares it with the world. Because he always says, Brain Spotting doesn't belong to me, it belongs to us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the deal. So David Grand, Dr. David Grand, that's my mentor, that's my boogaloo. He has been, I love him.
I know you do. We all know. Not a secret. Say it.
I love him when I tell you he's such a great teacher. And before we can teach anybody, anything, there's got to be some level of connection. There's got to be some level of
Mm,
respect. There's got to be some place of equality, right? Because learning and teaching has mutuality. We learn and teach one to the other.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I love that. Even when you're speaking about David Grant, I see the connection there. And then you talked about brain spotting being a tool of connection and attunement, right? And I do believe that when people hold space and we're able to express something verbally, there is some benefit in it. So I don't want to dismiss or minimize anyone who is a talk therapist. There's something beautiful though about brain spotting that talks about that connection. And for people who aren't clinicians, tell us more about what that attunement means, because people sometimes don't know what attunement is and how that relates to brain spotting.
Absolutely. So with brain spotting, we work from the dual attunement and the uncertainty principle.
Mhm.
And what that means is when we start talking about dual attunement, it's one thing to be in space, because remember I said brain spotting is relational and neurobiological, but also we're guided by some really deep principles when you really look at them. You know,
Mhm.
David never said he created all this stuff. What David did in his genius mind, having been in the field for some time, he connected some things together that just kind of
Mm.
synced and made sense, right? And
Yeah.
so dual attunement has everything about that resonance from
Mm.
a practitioner or a clinician's perspective. Haven't you ever met somebody and instantly you felt comfortable or uncomfortable, right?
Absolutely. I'm just, yeah.
That's all neurobiological. Think about that. And here's the
Mhm.
deal, we're all connected. Not only is our system in and of itself connected to its part, I mean, the brain is genius. We're still studying the brain, it's progressive. We're still learning about the brain. But add to that someone being present with you,
Mm.
holding space with you. Because oftentimes, as clinicians, we co regulate with clients,
Yeah.
right? Because that dual attunement, the fact of the matter is, even with that, I want to go here neurobiologically for a second, Candice, if I might. Can you imagine a tool that can support you from in utero to pre-verbal
Mm.
even?
Ooh. Mm. From in utero to the first conception to the first connection of life throughout the lifespan. And that's what brain spotting does.
Picture that.
Hmm.
Picture what happens to mom, what happens to dad, happens to me. Because whatever environment, forget about the DNA part, right? Because oftentimes we give babies to women and we forget daddy contributed just as much as mama did. Mama just housing the gift,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so imagine being able to work with people who know that something happened to them, but they can't know what it was because during conception, that part of the brain isn't even developed yet. But I'll tell you what is, that
Mm-hmm.
neural tube.
Mm.
The brain comes out one side and the brain stem comes out the other. Think about that.
Mm-hmm. And it makes me think about, I've heard clients say, I don't know what happened to you, but I know something happened to me. Or I don't know why I don't feel comfortable with this person, but there's this part of me that goes, no, let me back out this room. Right? There's that level of attunement and awareness that's there. It makes me think about someone said something earlier. I wrote it down. It says trauma happens in isolation when there's no witness, when there's disconnection, when you're alone and vulnerable. And it sounds like spotting happens when there's connection and there's healing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Mm.
and and just think about that. Just think about in utero, whatever happened to mom, whatever happened to dad, whatever that experience was that you can't know, right? Because that part of the brain is not developed, but that subcortical brain is. And
Mm.
there's no content in the subcortical brain. but it's remember brainstem, reflexive.
Absolutely.
You come into a certain environment or you smell a certain thing when we start talking about that auditory, tactile, all
Mm,
these different
yeah.
levels
Yeah.
here. And this certain smell can either remind you of grandma's cooking or
Hmm.
it can repel you and back you up, and your whole body becomes contracted and
Mm.
constricted, and you don't have meaning for that. But then
No.
you have a conversation with mama
Ooh.
and you say, Mom, because I'm precocious, so I've always been precocious. Like, I say whatever to my mother from day one.
Hmm.
And, I could literally say to my mom, Ma, I smelt this and that, and it really ba 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 ba. And my mom might say, well, it was like that for you because so and so was going on, and them grits was on the stove, and I had to do what I had to do. But see, you don't even remember that
Yeah.
because that wasn't in your knowing, but it was in your experiencing.
Ooh. Ooh.
Brain spotting is about it's experiential. I'm getting
Uh-huh.
excited.
So, girl, get excited. I'm excited because I'm like, I got 1,000 questions, and I think Carmela Fisher is excited. That's good. Carmela, that's bomb. That's more than good. So, I'm looking at it from a generational perspective, right? Can you speak about that epigenetics of trauma, especially for people of color, Black people, African American people, right? Hispanic people, Latino people, Asian American people, right? Jewish people, that piece, Polish people, that piece, and how that piece shows up with trauma and how brain spotting helps that generational piece that you don't even have language for, that you don't even know it's there, but it's there.
Here's what studies are showing around brain spotting. Thank you for asking me that because I'm not so sure about epigenetics from that frame, but I know that there's something there. I think people are trying to find terminology to encapsulate um, subject, topic, something like that. But here's the deal, and I'm going to give you a prime example. Kanye West. And I'm going to tell you why I'm saying that because when we start talking about brain spotting and going to go get it,
Mm-hmm.
brain spotting's like a missile seeking out whatever that prey is in the system, that trauma, you got to go,
Yes.
right? And so when we talk about what's in our system, understand none of us fell out of the sky and we're connected. I'll
Mm-hmm.
never forget in seminary when my professor, Dr. Handy, we were in the hip hop class in seminary, if you can believe that. And there was a split screen of Africans in Africa doing native dances and drumming. And on the split screen was some people doing the crump in California. The
Mm-hmm.
movements were the same. It's in you, just like when they
Yeah.
bring out studies about our black boys in school and that they tapping, but they calling that a disturbance, but what it is a stimulation. And
Mm-hmm.
that baby is tapping because he's connected with something in his system to that
Mm-hmm.
motivates, right? And it
Yeah.
gets his brain going. And
Yes.
so when we start talking about transgenerational, intergenerational, personal, all these traumas, it's not about what it is to know that it is. Brain spotting has a way. We deal with activation. What happens when a person is activated and as we're doing the brain spotting setup, like a prime example, I'm just going to tease a little bit with Candice. She's a brain spotting practitioner.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Candice, I saw something here. We've done the setup and everything. And now Candice is sharing, oh, this is about a 10 to me. And I'm like, okay, let's keep going. So, what happens is with the activation, when we allow, as a clinician, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because brain spotting, we don't have to keep talking because when you keep talking to the client, you're pulling them up from their subcortical brain into their neocortical brain. Because now this is your thinking, executive functions. That's what's happening here. This is your thinking brain. Your subcortical brain is your feeling brain. So,
Mm.
through that process, when we're engaging, that activation, we use that because what happens is the activation goes up, and when we allow it to peak up, peak
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
on its own, the nervous system in and of itself it has its own limits. So when it hits its peak, then it can rearrange and come on back down the slope with regulation. We're going
Mm,
up with dysregulation, hitting that peak, reorganizing in that moment. This is where healing is happening. And then we
mm.
coming on back down the slope.
Yeah. So you bring up all of that trauma, that activation, right? Which is why, if people saw the promo, I talked about Yi and saying, wow, because whenever I see this brother, he's always activated, right? Always activated. And the eyes are just like deer lights, just activated, right? And I'm like, wow. And
Activated and dissociated. I'm just
and
saying.
dissociated, right? And what I love about the documentary he made, you get to hear about the trauma, the loss, right? And you get to realize, I get to see, wow, it's really stuck in there. And you said dissociated, not connected to it, right? But it's acting up, but not having the awareness of how it's acting up, and it's spilling up with rage. Which is why when I said, well, we need more than one pointer, because if he had a pointer, if he had someone who was a brain spotting clinician, he'd be there. You go. Ooh, woo.
He can hit those points that he's
Mm,
feeling in his body. And I'm going to tell you something else because I love Kanye. I've been tempted over the years to reach out to Kanye. But let me tell you what pisses me off. I'm so sick of this superficial society that we're in where people, give off this vibe that what they got determines who they are. The devil is a liar.
yeah,
Because the fact for me and what troubles me, when I look up a lot of clinicians that serve these so called celebrities, whether they psychologists, social workers, clinical social workers, mental health clinicians, or LPCs,
yeah.
when I pull up their bio and pull up their page,
Mm-hmm.
their tools are outdated as well.
There you go.
They paying all this money because who know who,
Mm-hmm.
but it's your homegirl over there that's
Woo.
not in your circles that's holding the goods to release you from your pain and your
Woo.
traumas. And
Yes.
because ain't no competent person gonna kiss your ass to heal you.
Yes.
And because they're not asking you for $1,000 a whop, because they understand that people that look like me and my sister Candice, most people can't afford that.
Yes. So we're
Okay?
talking about trauma competency. No, I don't look at me. Preach
And
it.
we're talking about social justice, which goes back to access. And so many of you think because you la di da da and you kicking down all this money to Susie, and Susie ain't even equipped to carry you, much less heal you, and you out here committing these faux pas that's setting my community back eons of years, and y'all screaming about Jewish people. We need to take a lesson from Jewish people. Don't
Mm,
nobody spend more money in America than black folks. And they
mm,
keep pandering to us the things that really matter, your health, your mental health. They ain't talking about that. I'm stoked
absolutely.
right now on what I found out about the allostatic load and overload.
Mm,
Yes, I am worldwide, right? In a very humble way. Now, I'm interested in seeing how these sisters going to respond to this retreat that I have curated for them,
yeah.
whereby I will be using communal ancient healing, engage in brain spotting, somatic experiencing, and IFS, because I'm not just there to be there. But let me tell you what I found. Yeah, I had to go on my piggy bank to make it nice because now I understand why so many people die with their dream. It costs money,
Absolutely.
lots of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Cancun, Mexico, July 20th through the 24th, I'm excited about it. I had someone say to me, you could have stayed at a cheaper hotel. Well, why, when it come to black women, everything got to be on the budget? Hell no, because we will be at the Hard Rock Hotel Riviera Maya. We
Mhm.
will do ceremonious adjacent activities. We
Mm,
will close with a party on a yacht that Sunday
oh,
evening.
I love it. And look at the communal experience, because what we said is that trauma happens in disconnection, and you're talking about community. And I love the fact that you referenced other ethnicities, because they connect. They bring in their ancestry history, their communal experience, right? That they don't cancel each other out. They support each other, and I think that's one of the takeaways. I'm looking at other ethnic groups. I'm like, wow, look at this. They come together like a fist, and that is it comes to heal you, right? And what I do like is that you're about, and for everybody, get your pen, piece of paper out, get your phone out, because I'm going to have the sister repeat her stuff about the things she's having in Mexico, as well as for clinicians. This is really about becoming trauma competent. If you're a talk therapist, this is about becoming trauma competent. You don't have to use brain spotting, but there's a need for you to become trauma competent about all communities that you serve, right? Because a
We
lot of
have
them,
to.
oh, we do,
We,
and it's
we
not in our basic training sometimes, but it's important for you to stretch. So get your pen, piece of paper, and tell them again. So it's in Mexico, and it's focused on women.
It's for Black women only, any Black women of the diaspora, right? Mixed race people welcome, because I always get tickled when people try to exclude folk who are Black and, right? If you
Yeah,
Black, you Black. Whether you Black and Asian, you Black and white, you Black and Latinx, whatever, you Black, because that's what the world see when they see you.
yeah,
Not dishonoring your other ethnicities. My
mhm,
son is multicultural. He's
yeah,
just as much Black as he is Guatemalan. Be
hmm,
clear about that. But this is 4 days centered around our Blackness at the intersection of Black and
hmm.
woman.
Look at that.
It has to be.
Really?
So we're going to do the Path of Feeling on that Friday. We're having a reception that Thursday evening. I want everybody to have a chance to get there. And that Friday, we're going to have healing circles the whole weekend around topics
Mm,
from womanhood straight on down through rebirthing, retrieval. And
mm.
so that path of feeling that Friday, where I'm gonna play with you a little bit and assimilate what it might have been to travel
Love.
through the diaspora in your system. That
Mm,
Saturday, along with the healing circles around topics, they're all on my website. We're gonna actually I've contracted with some folk in Tulum to do our water purification ceremony with
I
their
love
Mayan clay.
it.
And just for the record, a couple of years ago when I went to Mexico with my babe, my husband, my Nigerian prince, him, we were at Chichen Itza. And I
Uh,
was reading the wall of some of the artifacts. Guess
yes.
who was on the wall?
Who's on the wall?
A Native American, a Mayan, and a straight up African was etched on
Mm,
the wall. Talk about
mm,
the panacea. That's a
mm,
whole nother conversation, see, because
mm,
I don't want to mess with nobody's
mm.
theology.
Yes.
But I saw that with my own eyes. And so we're going to call on our ancestors. This ain't no devil worship, y'all, because the church done messed up a lot of folk. They done disconnected you from your authentic self. And anytime, because I'm a Christian, but the fact of the matter is, there's so much more to who we are
Mm,
intrinsically. We're a spiritual people. Ain't
absolutely.
nobody in history has done and accomplished what Black folk have done in this world. Say what you will, okay? So, with that, we're gonna have that purification ceremony that Saturday with the Mayan clay, and go ahead and let our ancestors love
Yeah.
on us. And we're gonna wash it in the Caribbean Sea. And
Ooh,
then that Sunday, we'll have our circles closing out, and that evening we will be on the yacht having our party, dancing and doing
next
because yeah, and
move
listen,
it.
it
That's
hey,
it.
movement. We got and we need it. And so when I researched retreats, I saw nothing like it. See, because the whole goal ain't for me to get fat. The goal is for me to begin to share what my sisters, not what I say,
Mm,
but what I do and what you experience. It's in your experiencing.
hello.
Listen, I'm one of those people. Let me see it. See, because you can't talk me to death. I need people to experience it so that
Mhm.
me and the team can support your system. When we support your system's going to do your healing.
Ooh,
You have the power to heal yourself. That's what I love about brain spotting
ooh, I love it.
because it's an invitation. I'm going to shut up. And then
But
my
if you,
trainings.
no, no, no. I think, and I'm going to say this, and I'm hoping people open up to when you talked about ye, you said disconnection. When we have trauma, and for clinicians, you know these terms. When you have trauma and you can't escape, you go to that dorsal place. You just shut down, right? But the feeling doesn't go away. And really, the part of healing, which is why I love the fact that I saw a woman king, and I love this Wakanda coming, because women have a way of healing nations. If you heal a woman and you get her to co-regulate and come from that shut down place, and you heal her heart, heal her body, and restore her, then you restore the whole family. And that is a priceless restoration. It breaks generational trauma and wounds. And I am so happy. So I hope that people register. What's your website again? And I want to hear about the clinical training. What is the website they can register?
Yeah. So if you go to www.gracecommunitycounseling.com, all my stuff is there. There's a tab that says retreats. Check it out, please. And that is the Unbound Women Healing Retreat, July 20th through 24th, Cancun, Mexico. We've gotten a block for your rooms per bed because it's double occupancy, two people per room. Each person pays $1,085 for those 4 days.
Oh.
So each person, and I have a travel agent that's handling that. The only thing you're paying me is for the straight up retreat because you're going to
Mm,
get your own plane ticket, and Monica is going to handle your room. But I was able to get a really good rate because the Hard Rock Hotel is top notch,
love
and your transfer to and from the hotel to the airport is included in that. And all the activities that I'm providing as part of the retreat, which actually reinforces the work we'll be doing in the healing circles, all of that's included in your retreat
mm.
price. I ain't trying to get rich. I got a job, I got
Oh, I
grace.
love it. I
Okay.
love it. I love it. I'm hoping
Yeah.
that people who hear this attend this, send it to a friend. If they miss it, send them this video. You can send it through a live or go to my YouTube channel, Dope Black Therapist. Send it to them because here's the thing: someone needs them to be there. A family needs them to be there. Their ancestors need them to be there. So this is
Ashe.
healing, right? And for those people who are from other ethnic groups, you can mirror this. Create this for your own group. This is about healing, spiritual healing, emotional healing, physical healing. Your ancestors need it. So if you're a clinician and you want to know about brain spotting, because this sister has a training coming up, she's international, first Black American female brain spotter leader. Ma'am, how can they learn from you? How can they evolve with you?
So I provide BIPOC trainings, which are Black, Indigenous, and persons of color. And also, Candice, after I do this retreat for Black women only, I'm going to also do a BIPOC retreat in this same format. But Black women need sacred space to feel safe, to even
Mm,
participate, right? We got colorisms and everything else going on in the Black community, as other
mhm.
communities, but I don't want to overly activate sisters. I need sisters to come forward with all they Black parts. And
Yes.
so my sisters need that, and I understand why,
Mhm.
historically, spiritually, and otherwise. So I'm all about inclusion, right? And you'll notice usually when I say Black and brown. But the fact of the matter is, my Latinx sisters, them my people. My Asian American sisters, them
Yeah.
my people.
Mhm.
All people are my people. So the brain spotting trainings that I do are I do BIPOC brain spotting trainings for phase one and phase two. I also do inclusive brain spotting trainings. If you're not a person of color, I have a phase two coming up in February for inclusive and a phase one in August. But as far as BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, persons of color, exclusively training, I have a phase two coming up November. I think it's like the second through the fourth or something like that.
Uh-huh.
No, it's some, go on my website. And then I have a phase one BIPOC training November the 9th through November the no, December. December the 9th through the 11th is BIPOC Brain Spotting Phase 1,
Mm-hmm.
which is December the 9th through the 11th. That's BIPOC Brain Spotting Phase 1. And there's a BIPOC brain, excuse me, Brain Spotting phase two coming up this November. And for certification in brain spotting, you got to have phase one and phase two. And then after you have those, there's a consultation process where you have to complete no less than 6 consultations with
Mm-hmm.
a certified consultant. That can support you with that, and that's one on one. There's that. I see a question from
Is it Carmela?
Carmela.
I think
Not
no
Go ahead.
diagnosis. G. It looks like there is. I can't see the
It
full, but it
says
looks like when you were talking,
it says not diagnosis, yay,
it looks like
but
there's
it
a
looks
person.
as if uh-huh, there is a personality associated as well. Um, I don't know if she's saying diagnosis or
Who wants to
disorder
know, do
by
you
her
work with people
DX.
who are, yeah, I think that's what she's asking about.
How
So
does brain spotting work with a client who has a personality disorder? Like you work with anyone else. Keep in mind, when we talk about personality disorders, we're talking about axis two. So, historically, what I have noticed that people do coming from a community mental health background, having worked in hospital, now in private practice, all these things, is I find that clinicians address what they can get paid for. Insurance companies don't readily pay for access to diagnosis, but what we know is that access to diagnosis don't happen in isolation.
mm-hmm.
There's co-occurring, there's comorbidity there. If you're dealing with an axis 2 personality disorder, there's something overarching on that axis 1. Now, with brain spotting, what happens oftentimes with dissociation, right? Has woo, what that mean, Carmela? You messing with me, Carmela. But that's okay. I like to be messed with. So where I'm going with when you start talking about personality disorder, I think our society has taught us to pathologize every damn thing. I don't know that everything is pathology as much as people are wired differently.
Yeah.
I see every human being as a flower in the garden of God. That's how I operate. I get to be the beekeeper, I get to be the gardener. Now, with someone you are deep. I don't know about that. They call me
No,
crazy
you got
Tracy
it,
in some
Camilla.
circles.
You got it. She is. That's why she's here. The Dope Therapist International.
Ashe.
It's a training. You won't be surprised. You won't be disappointed. You'll be transformed.
Well, personality disordering or phenomenon, as I've learned from David, they're phenomenons. They're not disordering because we're all created in the image of whatever our higher power is. What
Mm-hmm.
I've found is that dissociation becomes protection. Dissociation is not necessarily pathology. When I think of dissociation, I think about the radiator in a car engine and how the radiator will signal to the engine that you overheating so that you can shut down the motor and not blow the motor.
Mm-hmm.
Dissociation is our protector oftentimes because when things happen to us that's just so horrific, that dissociative piece creates distance between us and that thing, right? So it's like the brain's protecting itself. And so when I think of Kanye, I can't diagnose Kanye. He's no client of mine. I've never met him or anything like that. But Kanye, for me, has challenges with his dysregulation from the place of the core
Mm-hmm.
at the intersections of Black, male, socioeconomic is in there, religion is in there
Mm-hmm.
because he loved God, ain't no doubt about that. When
Mm-hmm.
he's dominant
Yes.
male
Yes.
when it comes to gender, but he's marginalized when it comes to that Black,
Woo!
right?
There
No
you go.
matter how much money he got on
See,
the privilege side, because they showed him that you
gonna
can be
do
a
this over.
billionaire for now, but I'm gonna get you together in your pocket,
They sure did.
right?
And this is why it's about trauma and intersectionality, right? Which is why we have to do the work and see how that all plays, race, sex, gender, all of that plays well. And one of the things that people are doing is they're only looking at the behavior and not looking what's underneath the behavior.
That's
And
right.
what has caused this man to say Planned Parenthood is my Holocaust? What is that about? That's level of loss that's there. And one of the things I love about this sister is that she really talks about looking at the person from holistic, generational, right? Societal, looking at this person so that you can see what's in that body. Because, the body never forgets. It's in the genes, it's in the DNA. So I want people, if you want to know more about this sister, I'm going to ask her to say it again. How can they find you again? What's your website again?
Candace, now you starting to clown and you tickling me because that's how we do. We play.
So Black
I
therapist.
love you.
Because let me tell you something. Because I got Renee's on it, Camilla's on it. People are interested because we're talking about what happens, right? And how that shows up. And
Yeah.
sometimes all we see is the slap, all we see is what people say, but we don't look at what's underneath that and what's connected to that, not just situationally, but generationally. What's happening.
Generationally.
So,
You know, here's the deal. If someone sent a Kanye to me,
mhm.
that brother needs support so deeply, I wouldn't even make him pay for my damn ticket. I'd be happy to go and spot that
Hold on,
ass
hold on,
and
wait a
get
minute.
what the
You're gonna be
soul.
quiet.
I'm
Yeah,
teasing. I'm
I'm just,
teasing. No,
I'm just
no.
saying.
Don't come to me talking about what you need and you out here wearing $10,000 purses. Ain't going down.
Right.
Because I don't live like that. And I do,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I'm gracious. I'm
Yes.
grateful for my gifting. But a
Absolutely.
joker on the side of the road got a better chance at me than any celebrity who feel like they don't know my worth or my value and even scrunching about what they need to pay me. That's just realty because that's how I
Absolutely.
do. But I do want to say this because there's a lot of Kanye's out here, but the behavior in and of itself seemed dysregulated to me. I've never sat with Kanye,
I like
just
it.
from watching his profile, how
Yeah.
he moved. It does seem to me that he have high highs and low lows and they go nonstop. They go from one to the other. Now, what brain spotting can do for a person like that, first and foremost, is for them to feel seen and
Mm,
held and being attuned to. Second than that, what brain spotting, a tool such as this can do for a person, it can support them from going from dysregulation to regulation. That's why our clients come to see us. It ain't because they just think you so fly.
yes.
Okay. Most people can't regulate themselves, okay? And let me tell you at the core for me, as I've been watching Kanye from my small
Mm-hmm.
knowing, there's a lot of self hate happening with Kanye.
Mm,
Because to even make a suggestion that George Floyd died by anything else outside of murder and the whole world watched it, are you kidding
yeah.
me? I'm from
Yeah.
Charleston, South Carolina. They still
Yeah.
got lynching trees.
Yeah.
I see,
There's that
I'm a Geechee
disconnection.
girl.
But there's that disconnection, right? If you're
That's
just
that
there's the
disconnection,
disconnection. And this is what
right?
I love. And notice how we're not talking about the diagnosis. We're talking about the
Yeah,
disconnection and the dysregulation. Because sometimes we get stuck on the diagnosis and we don't see the
yeah.
disconnection and what's underneath that or connected to that. Look, we can talk forever. This sister's dope. I told you it's gonna be a good conversation. So I'm
Thank
hoping
you,
that you
Candace.
check her website out, share this video. If you missed it or your friends missed it, you can find it on Dope Black Therapist. I think I've spoken before that I have a provider directory um, called Color of Trauma and Healing. We are looking for clinicians to be part of our Wakanda who can service clinicians who are BIPOC in the BIPOC community. So if you're looking for a home and you're a provider and you want to connect with other providers or you want to heal the community and you want them to be able to find you, consider us as a choice. Thank you so much, Miss Tracy.
Always a pleasure, Candace. It is my honor to be with you and
Oh,
have spent this time. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
yeah, this was fun too. This was fun too. Have a good evening and have a safe trip. I know you're going away. Have a safe trip.
Thank you, my love.
You're welcome. Bye.